So you're telling me we're not going to have electricity when we go camping?
No, but it'll be okay. And we're going to tell you how we do it in this
Midweek Update.
Welcome back, everyone. So we're going to talk about how we became comfortable with boondocking.
Yeah.
Stick to the end of this video to find out. But throughout this entire midweek update, we are answering your questions.
That's right.
Actually reached out to our Patreons and asked them to provide us with questions for this Q&A session. And we have some really good questions to get through.
Some tough ones.
So the boondocking question's coming up, but before we get to that, we have several others. So Patty, let's go ahead and kick it off with question number 1.
All right. Question number 1. When do you hope to retire, and will you full-time RV? My first answer is tomorrow. But no.
No, so actually that is a very timely question because
We've
Patty
been
and I
thinking
have
about
been looking into this and both of us have been talking to our employers. We are actually shooting for retirement in 4 years. Now, understand that does not mean that we won't be working.
No.
But it means we're looking at the possibility of leaving our full-time jobs and hitting the road full-time in an RV, at least for a few years.
Right. See how it goes. I think we'll always have some kind of home base. We've talked about that. And that I think we'll always have something we're going to do to make money.
Right.
And like on my side, I've been thinking about maybe how I can do some tutoring. Because I know there's got to be ways to tutor out there. So that was what I was thinking.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things. There's still some issues or some questions that need to be answered. I will actually be eligible for retirement in 4 years, which means I'll get to leave with my healthcare benefits. Patty can come on my healthcare benefits, and I won't actually be able to draw from my retirement for another 4 years beyond that. But it at least gives us the opportunity. So we're really working on Patty's to find out exactly if she can leave and what effect that would have on her retirement account. But yeah, I think we're definitely looking at that possibility. And, you know, there's a chance we've talked that we may have to sell Tall Pine Lodge to make that happen. And we travel for a few years. And then obviously at some point, we, as Patty said, we would find a home base. And then continue to travel, but have a small house somewhere.
Right.
All right.
Yep. Question number 2. If you RV full-time, would you change to a larger RV?
I think that's a definite yes.
Yes.
Okay?
And we've talked about that too.
Yeah. So we definitely would probably upgrade. We love the Tab 400, but if you're going to live in it with 2 of us and 2 dogs, I think we're going to want something a little bit bigger. Our good friends Russ and Carrie over at the Roads We Roam started off in their little guy Max, and I think they had a good time for the months that they were in it. But just realize if you're going to live on the road,
you need some more space.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that, and we've watched a lot of other YouTubers do it. So we're kind of learning and watching, and we keep researching on how it's going to work for us. But yeah, definitely need something bigger.
Yeah, and my guess is we would want to be no bigger than maybe 26, 27 feet most.
Not too big.
No, we'll probably end up looking at, you know, things like Grand Design or the Avia from NuCamp. Maybe something from Lance. Obviously, Airstream is on my list as well. So yeah, we definitely have to look at something a little bit bigger. We're going to need a little more storage, and but we don't want to get so big. I don't see us going back to like a 35-foot fifth wheel, because if we're going to be full-time, the goal is to travel, and we want to get into those amazing spots in national parks and national forests. And so I just don't want to go too big.
Right, definitely. I agree. Next question. Do you use solar or wind at home? No.
No, we don't, partially because...
where we are located.
Where we're located, the wind definitely wouldn't work back here in the trees. We're just so... A lot of times it is really windy right outside of the canyon.
Right.
But back in here, you don't even notice it nearly as bad. Now, we'll see it because it's in the upper atmosphere with the pine trees. Or I say upper atmosphere, but the higher levels.
Sure.
So you see the pine trees moving. So the wind definitely wouldn't work. Solar, we talked about, but again, here in Indiana, I don't know how efficient it would be. But I know that when we hit the road full time in an RV, we will definitely want the new rig to be fully equipped with solar.
Just like our Carl is right now.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Definitely. All right, next question. Have you had to do any emergency vet service when traveling, and how do you find trustworthy vets? I can say yes. We've had to use a vet service. When we had Delaney, our pup, our last pup, it was a holiday, Christmas, and we had to find a vet fast. And at the time, my brain we didn't see anything local, so my brain went right to Google. And thank goodness we had our phones and able to use Google, because I just Googled veterinary hospital. And it just took me, the first one I clicked on because I saw the address was close to where we were, near Davenport, Florida, and that's where we went. And it was an amazing place. So ever since that scary experience with Delaney, and she ended up being okay, and we got to bring her home, ever since then with these two, when we travel, I'm eyeballing where they are. I'm always looking as we travel, because I just remember now on our last trip to Texas, I remember thinking, okay, there's one, as we're driving, and kind of trying to make a mental note of that in case you do need to get a vet. We always carry their papers, so that we know what vaccines they've had and what's going on with them if we had to go to a different vet. So that's what I think.
And I think if you're concerned, if you do need vet services on the road, again, I think Patty's right. Google it and look for reviews for the vet service.
And Russ and Carrie like to use
they use
at PetSmart.
They use the Banfield, I think, clinics, because once you use one, then your pet's records are in their system.
And it's around the country. They can get into your service of your pet. So yeah. That's what I would do.
So the key is when you're going to an area, maybe do a little research before you get there, just so you have an idea where the nearest vet would be, or emergency vet service.
And that's personally what I've learned to do ever since we had to deal with Delaney. So, do you use a roadside service like Good Sam's?
Actually, we do not. What we have is I actually have towing coverage through our State Farm policy. But one thing I will say, and I had double checked with our agent on this, through State Farm at least, we needed to carry towing both on the truck and on the trailer. So initially we only had it on the truck, and when I actually checked with our agent, she said, well, your truck would be covered, but your trailer would not. So for a couple dollars a month, we added it to both the trailer and the truck. And that's what we use. And the couple times over the years where I've broken down and had to call, we've had no issues with State Farm. And so we've just kind of stuck with them. I know there's other services out there like the Good Sam's, and we just currently don't have anything other than our State Farm coverage.
Right. And it works for us. So.
Yep.
What is your emergency plan for severe weather when boondocking? Well, there's a few things we do. We have a weather radio, and when we get to our location that we're going to be located for a while, Patrick always programs the county, so we know if it goes off that something's coming, if we're sleeping or whatever. And we also kind of are aware when we get there, we ask, what do we do if there's severe weather? Where do we go? Since we have the pups, because sometimes they're not allowed, in certain places. And we kind of figured that out ahead of time, so we're not instantly kind of, what do we do? So at least we have an idea of what we need to do over there. So
and so if you're, depending on what you define as boondocking, if you're in a campground where you have no hookups, some people would say that's boondocking. So we look for restrooms or solid structures. But if you're talking true boondocking, like when we were in the Lower Teton View and the Grand Tetons, there's really no shelter around there. And so that's where you really have to be watching the weather and looking at the map of where's the nearest place you could go if there was to be severe weather, and just really stay on top of it. So I think a lot of it is just pre-planning. I don't think whenever we boondocked, where we were really out in the middle of nowhere, that we ever have had a situation. The few times where we have encountered severe weather has typically been when we are in a campground. And again, it's kind of just scouting out when you get there, like, hey, there could be a threat of severe weather. Let's check the restrooms. Maybe that's a place, or the clubhouse. Or are you close to a town where you could go and find a solid structure to go to? And like Patty said, some places don't allow pets, but in the case of severe weather, if there's a storm, I don't really care what the rules say.
No, I'm going in with them.
In our first season on YouTube, we were caught in, we were going south of Des Moines trying to get to Kansas City and got stuck in a line of tornadoes. and we ended up pulling into a gas station, and initially we were going to ride it out. But it got so bad, a tree limb fell right behind our trailer, and I said, that's it, we're going in. We literally ran up, and as the gal who was working there opened the door, I said, I know you're not pet friendly, but we're coming in.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, they're welcome. She said, come on in, just make sure there's no messes. And I said, okay, Patty.
Don't make a mess.
Yeah, don't make a mess. But, and I think when the weather's that bad, places understand. And we held Delaney until we rode out the storm. But
and they were flat. They were very nice.
So again, planning.
Yep.
Know ahead of time. Don't wait till the weather's bearing down on you to decide.
Well, and that's why we also helping us with boondocking is we have really good apps that we like to use.
Yep.
We use for the Weather Channel. We have the radar scope, which helps us when severe weather's coming.
Yep.
So it's really up to date minute. We know what we're looking at. We've done this enough over the years through camping and all this stuff that we kind of are aware of what to do when it's really bad weather.
Yep.
So, yep.
Okay.
Okay, how did you get comfortable with boondocking? Not having electricity is intimidating. I bet so.
Yes. So how do you get comfortable with boondocking? And we find a lot of people, including us early on, were very intimidated by boondocking. And whether it's knowing whether you're going to have enough water in your tank, whether your black tank and your gray tank are big enough, how to conserve water.
Right.
But I do think the statement about being intimidated by electricity is the one that most people are worried about. I would say for starters, go out for a night.
Yes, small trips.
Yeah, and maybe that's just going to a local Cracker Barrel and camping in their parking lot or spending the night in their parking lot. And find out what happens to your battery for the night. Understand, if you're not plugged in, your AC most likely is not going to work because most people don't have enough solar and battery power in their trailers to run their AC. But you will find, like we have, ways to keep the trailer cool. Obviously, we're not going to probably boondock when it's 90 plus degrees out.
No.
But so when you go, obviously we'll play into that. We use a fan that is USB powered that we absolutely love.
Yes.
Doesn't hardly touch the battery,
It's
but
quiet,
keeps it
easy to use.
We have our Max Air fan in our trailer that also helps with ventilation, keeping your windows open.
Right.
And then, if you make it through a night and you're like, hey, we did good and our battery held up, no problem, then you can begin looking at multiple night stays. And things like that. Now, what really helps out in our case is we have two sources to recharge our batteries. Number one, we have a 194 watt panel on the roof, plus we have an additional 100 watt portable panel. So we have close to 300 watts of solar that we can use to recharge our batteries. But then the other option is we do carry a generator with us. And so that generator can be used during the day if we need to run the air conditioner.
Right.
Or if we go several days without sun, we can always plug the trailer in and use that as a source of power to help recharge our batteries.
Exactly.
So,
we've had to do that a few times. So
obviously, if you have a standard, lead acid deep cycle battery and it only is like a 60 or 75 amp hour, you're probably not going to be able to go for more than one night boondocking. But like the NuCamp trailers that come with the AGM batteries, like the Tab 400, those are 200 plus amp hours. You can drain them down to about 50%. So you're going to have about 100 amp hours. And that's what we did for the first 2 years. And then if you're really serious about boondocking like us, then we just recently switched over to the Battleborn lithium batteries. But yeah, baby steps.
Yes.
And, and
just
you may
trial
find,
and error,
trial and error, and you may find out that you absolutely love camping without hookups. And in fact, if you're interested in learning more about boondocking, I'm going to go ahead and put a playlist down here for you on some boondocking basics to get you started. Till next time, everybody, we'll see ya.
On down the road.
Good night.